Welcome to the Sovereign Conversations podcast. My name is Emma Seppälä. I'm a psychologist, a research scientist, and a best-selling author. We explore all topics sovereignty and inner freedom on this podcast. Today, my guests are Starr Granby-Collins and Bryant Woods. So Starr is an incredible leader based out of Washington, D.C. She's corporate leader, community leader, and an incredible sovereignty speaker, as you will see. Bryant Woods is an influencer, an inventor. He's a highly creative artist, actor, model, social media influencer. He wears many hats, and he is full of wisdom, life's wisdom, and wisdom he has learned along the way about sovereignty. So I hope you enjoy the conversation.
I think it starts with a curiosity of liberation. And I think that's a natural curiosity that's inherent in all of us. But I also think some of us are pre-programmed to enjoy that curiosity more or find that curiosity out of necessity. And then I believe it's an application of what you find through the curiosity of liberation. So how to master your mind, your body, your emotions. How do you question yourself and others and concepts of the world?
That's so true, right? It's like, when we go to school and we're not told to ask that question, like, how am I going to be liberated in this lifetime?
Yeah, exactly.
And how do I live in a way where I'm freer from within, so I can live the life I want that's authentic to me? So Starr, I know you've had some really interesting life experiences, observations when watching TV shows, lots of different insights around sovereignty. I'd love to hear it.
I'm sorry, I was laughing so hard. I missed the end of your question. So,
I'd love to hear any and all of it could be your life experiences or that TV show you were telling me about the other day when you were like, I get it.
Yeah. Oh my God. So, and probably I'm a little bit too hard on myself, but there are always patterns every single day. There are things that, because, I said the first step to being sovereign is calling a thing what it is, kind of naming a thing. Now, you've got to be careful with that because you can get too critical of yourself, right? You know what I mean? Where it's just you're just constantly beating up on yourself. So there's a middle ground to that. But there is, and I believe, it's funny, you said we're not taught that in school. In fact, sometimes in school we're taught the exact opposite. Because, we want to live in a polite society where everyone, behaves in a certain way. And I get that's very, very important. So our kids aren't necessarily taught to be curious a lot of times. What they're taught is, okay, these are the rules. This is how you follow the rules. Not necessarily, to spark curiosity, at the very beginning, right? You're learning the rules, right? You're learning necessarily not to question authority. You know what I mean? You're learning the hierarchy in school. So that was a sidebar on that. But as I think about where I'm always looking for sovereignty every single day, there are things that I just want to kind of break free of, whether it's a sugar addiction or a social media addiction or, because I'm always thinking to myself, if my time is spent here, if I'm eating this here, what am I saying no to, right? If I'm spending 2 hours scrolling, what am I saying no to, right? And why can't I stop this behavior? You know what I mean? And so in my mind, I'm always thinking of ways to get free so that nothing has dominion over me but me, right? And so when you're thinking like that, I can find freedom in a song or freedom in a TV show. And it was funny because I was watching, this show that I watch with superheroes called It's with Agatha. I forget the name of the show, but I love it. It's on Disney. And so in the show, Agatha is this beautiful, powerful witch who's been bewitched by another beautiful, powerful witch. And Agatha deserves it. I mean, she's not really a nice person, but she is powerful. She is strong, and I admire her, right? And so so she's there, and while she's kind of in this layer upon layer illusion that she's in, right? And she's been in this illusion for 2 years. She doesn't remember her name. She doesn't know who she is. And then there's something that she sees that knocks her out of it. And the person was like, hold on a second. Those are flowers. You see that, don't you? And it's so funny. It started first with what she saw. He said, you recognize that's not what you thought it was. And she goes, what? She goes, that, and then she looks at it again, right? Because she recognizes, hold on a second. I thought something was one thing, but it's actually another. That was step one. So she goes through it and she starts talking to herself and she goes, that's it. Claw yourself out. Claw yourself out. And she keeps going layer by layer by layer by layer until she's finally literally naked. Right? She's naked and exposed outside. And that's what sovereignty does to you. You're naked at one, you're like, oh my God. And then she goes, and then she says to her neighbor, she's outside, she's this beautiful, powerful witch. And she says to her neighbor, she goes, how long have I been in this stupid town? And they're like, 2 years. And then it's just like, whoa, hold on a minute. Like, I've been living under this illusion for 2 years, or I've been living with this false thought about myself that I'm not good enough, that I'm smart enough for my whole life, right? And so that's the first step. Now, after she's comes out of the illusion, she's still not free. So as the show goes on, Emma, now she has to go on the witch's road. So that's the whole point. It's this constant journey through, right? But the first step is, wait a minute, what am I looking at? Right? And then it's like almost like the cycle of grief. Hold on, I've been dumb this long, right? And then people at that point, I think, decide to do one of two things, right? It's really painful to know that I've thought this thing for many, many years. And sometimes it's easier to go right back into the illusion than to keep clawing along that road, right? And so it's just like, oh my goodness, it's easier just to kind of believe what everybody believes, right? You know what I mean? There's no better way out. You know, this is just how it is. Sometimes it's actually, it feels safer there. And so if you believe that, you don't really have to kind of hold yourself accountable. And so I see it everywhere. Like I'll see it in songs, I'll see it in everywhere. And it's just like, hold on a second. But the first step to me is always recognizing what's true. And whenever I see, stories or hear songs or talk to my kids and they were like, oh, well, mommy, we thought it was this, but it was actually this. And I'm thinking, yes, claw yourself out of that. And those are the layers, and you're clawing yourself out. And it's constant. And it's because there's a constant barrage. It's of people, and I'm not trying to get too conspiracy theorist, right? There's a constant barrage of people, things that are there for our attention, because it literally, it's a money maker, right? If I am scrolling for 2 hours, right, I might buy something, right? Somebody's gaining, right? Or if I'm scrolling for 2 hours, I might not figure out, hey, this isn't true, so I don't have to spread this hate. So it's these constant things, barrages that are coming against you. And it's this constant cycle of realizing there's always going to be something that's vying for your sovereignty, right? And so once you realize that, it's not like, hey, I get free and I'm free. It's a journey. You're constantly getting free, staying free, taking inventory. Wait a minute. Is this something that's having undue influence on me? I don't want that, right? I want to know what I'm supposed to bring forward, right? Because like all of us have this beauty in us, right? That's just waiting to be revealed, right? And that's just me. Anyway.
Oh, that was so beautifully put. I mean, so beautifully put. And the clawing out and the needing to have this awareness, constant awareness. I mean, and that's why I often, talk about meditation and the need to pull yourself back to who you are and then observe and become aware of self, become aware of the world, become aware of where you're getting lost, where you're getting trapped. I mean, I think we've talked about this a lot, but on the Women's Leadership Program courses, we have all these highly talented executives coming in, and these executive women, and I just see again and again that most of them are bought into the program of I'm not good enough, and they're staying small. Starr, you were not one of those. She was. But, like the other day we had a cohort come in, and I said, how many of you are self-critical? And almost everyone in the room raised their hand except 2 women. And those 2 women were so powerful. Mm-hmm. Powerful. And it's like, wow, like the program I'm not good enough is keeping you small and shut down, but you're not happy there, but you think this is how it should be. This is how everyone is. Right. This is how And yet, if you come out of there, you become very powerful, maybe dangerous in the sense of threatening to other people who are not used to that. But like you said, in all your beauty, like you're blossoming into the full, beautiful expression of who you are to bless this world.
Right.
So amazing. And you're such an example of that, Starr. So I'm just so grateful that you're here and sharing what you're saying. It's really powerful. And Bryant, I'd love to hear, I know you've been on so many journeys of sovereignty and so many different, I mean, your life is an adventure, I feel like, and an exploration and a constantly freeing yourself more and more. And I'd love to hear from you, like any of your thoughts or responses or own stories around this.
Yeah, honestly, this is probably one of the conversations I'm most embodied in, based off of the choices that I've made throughout my life. There's just something innately in my astrology where it's like burn everything down that's not me, and whatever sticks, play with it, right? And this, from a practical perspective and an experiential one, the hardest time where I felt the least free was actually recently when I was in rehab, and I had an opioid addiction, just got done with a back surgery, was in severe chronic pain, and I was having dreams where I couldn't move. And I just talked to the psychologist and I was like, what does this mean? And she's like, well, if you can't move, you got to squirm. You got to, so my clawing was the squirming. Like I had to oh, break free from all this, and it was a month's thing where I was just like making small little inches towards freedom from like the depths of being controlled by a chemical substance and being a slave to it in a way. And that specific process taught me how important it is to do some of the most meaningful things you do for yourself, and that should be your greatest inspiration, and that's why you should do it, and the importance of taking care of the self. And then it led me to a deeper realization, because I had a beautiful like butterfly transformation where I dissolved into nothing and then all of a sudden I could fly, was the people around me that I loved the most, I cared the most to support. And then became an attachment to wanting them to shift and change, because I personally thought there could be a better experience for all beings involved. And I realized that the true essence of liberation in general is not trying to change anyone or anything. I'm not saying don't act on the inspiration to support the world and make it a better place, but the attachment to sharing love, and that love not being received, and then the continuation of people making less productive decisions, and then your natural judgment of that is so limiting compared to the act of unconditional love and doing your best every single moment without any sort of expectations of anyone changing other than yourself. So then there came this like understanding of what actual unconditional love meant, and then taking that into the environments, but still caring deeply, but being totally unattached to the outcome. There was a natural freedom that occurred that I never knew I really needed.
Bryant, can you share in more concrete example what you mean? Because it sounds really amazing, but I'm not quite catching like what happened. If you don't mind sharing,
yeah, I'm happy to share it. Yeah, I'm happy to share. It's very personal, and I'll share it on this podcast because I think it's a beautiful place to share it. What was funny is I got over my addiction, then I found out somebody in my life that was part of my family also had the same addiction.
Wow.
Okay.
Currently.
And currently, and still does. And the emotional charge of the person associated with this addiction was so, it made me really like observe, like, oh man, I was probably unhinged for a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh, if I was acting anything like that, then, it was a really beautiful reflection. And I wanted with my whole heart for this person to get over this addiction and to start behaving in a way that was positive towards the other people in the family and what we were doing for that person, because we were doing everything, housing, feeding, etc. And they weren't making the decisions, even though I felt like I had the information to support them in getting over it. They weren't acting on the information that I was giving them. And at first, I became absolutely livid. I went back to my old nature of a wrestler, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go beat it into him, I'm like until he gets it. And then thanks goodness to my beautiful, kind mother, she's like, unconditional love, no expectations. I was like, oh, okay. So continue to love, continue to support, right? If I have the energy to do so. And regardless of what happens, allow it to be perfect and still be there and not abandon anyone for the decisions that they're making and just keep unconditionally loving them. And even though it was draining a little bit, it taught me to set clearer boundaries, because I was just saying, I'm not available for this type of emotions anymore. Because, and then it honestly didn't end well. And in a way, I see the divinity in it, because I believe that the world's problems get so severe until you have to face the things that you need to overcome. And it was very interesting to see what I went through and how I learned and grew, and the ramifications of making poor decisions, and then seeing that kind of reflected in someone that you deeply care about. But again, I'm not suffering because of it, or feel a need to change it, because there's freedom and liberation in the way that I'm behaving from my personal experience. And I found that kind of key in how to interact with it that was really supportive in freedom.
Wow, amazing.
Is that clear?
Yeah, so you learning to unconditionally love and embrace this person despite their choices freed you of your frustration with them, but also taught you the self-love of having gone through that yourself, and just how the only answer, both towards someone else or yourself going through that, is that unconditional love.
And then it applies to every relationship in my life, because I'm not trying to change anybody anymore. I'm just shifting and changing myself to the best of my ability, and being authentic in that, right? Where if I'm triggered and I react in a negative way, I'll sit with it, and then I'll apologize, and I won't need apology in return. And I think we really get caught up in, I need this from you if I'm going to give you this. And now it's like, no, I'm doing this to become the best version of myself, and then I'm going to lead by example from what I feel is right. And if you decide to take that adventure with me or quest, join me in it. And also, you notice people learn through the consistency of that unconditional love, not from forcing a need.
Wow. So radical responsibility for your own feelings and actions, and that unconditional love that allows others to be able to have the possibility to blossom because they are not being judged and put in a box. Is that right?
Yeah. And when they figure it out for themselves, it's almost more deep. It's deeper.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's probably more lasting of a realization than if it's enforced. Wow, that is really powerful. Thank you so much.
It's funny because when you said that, right, what I got from that is that sovereignty, you only have control over yourself, and that is enough, right? Because you had control over yourself, right? And then you're thinking, okay, well, how do I deal with this? How do I love this person? It's not about, your sovereign boundaries don't extend beyond yourself. This is what I have control over. And everyone else has their own sovereignty, right? And their own kind of way that they are clawing out. And they have to do it on their own. So it's an inside job. And I can't claw anybody else out. They've got to get out on their own, right? But only having sovereignty over me is enough. Because as I get free, they can say, wow, she's free. I can't do the work for you, but it's enough. And we're always thinking, oh, I don't have enough. Oh, my goodness. Well, this bad thing and that bad thing. And this is beautiful. I'm not sure if it's Mother Teresa. I don't know who says it, but they said, don't let the good that you can't do stop you from doing the good that you can do. What I can do is get free. And what I can do is show you how I love myself. And what I can do is love you. That is enough for both me and you. I can't call you out, but it's enough.
So powerful, Starr. Yeah, because you're projecting an image for others to see. Oh, it's possible. Yep. Or Bryant, you're just like, look, I got out of this, and I love you, and I want you to get out of it. And it's like, wow, it's possible. Because Bryant, you've done this several times. You've had to go through detox several times of different situations, right?
Oh yeah.
And every time.
And you keep trying. You never stop. You keep the layers, and you're like, okay, well, I got to get through this one. I got to get through this one. I got to get through this one. And that's beautiful. You don't stop.
Yeah. It's so powerful. Wow, so powerful. Starr, do you want to share some example of how sovereignty is showing up in your life? I mean, there's so many examples I know, but
oh my God, there's so many examples. You know what? Actually, I'll share an example from the women's leadership course. And I was at a job before I came there. I was like, I believe in God, and I was like, God, I'm looking for something. I got to get free. You know what I mean? So I put that intention out there, which meant that it's kind of like they say, if you're looking for a red car, you'll see a red car. So I was looking to get free, so I got free. And so then Emma said something to me that honestly is not a concept that I even understood, because it's not a concept that happens, frankly, for me, for people like me. You said something like, you know what, Starr? You deserve joy in your work. And joy in work? That concept? Well, I mean, there's a historical reason why people like me don't believe in joy in work. You know what I mean? Okay? Like, listen, you go to work, you try not to get fired. You know what I mean? Like, you try not to do labor for free. You know, you try to get a check, you know? But, like, it was such a foreign concept, right? But when you are looking to get free, you find it in a song, in a show, in something that someone says, and you go like, I'm going to, oh my God, it's hope, right? Hope, even a mustard seed, even a little bit of it. And I said, wait a minute, I can be happy at work. Wait, hold on. It's like, wait, this is, like, let's explore this. You know what I mean? And so I started listening to the other women around me. You know what I mean? And now, mind you, like I said, it was a job where I got some really, really great experiences, but joy, happiness, no ma'am. Okay. And I said, wait a minute, this is something that I can do. This is something that is possible for me, not just for Emma, for people like me. Just like, hold on a minute. So then I started asking around, and I started being really, really bold. And I said, hey, you know what I mean? And honestly, it wasn't even anything really, really bold, because at the end of the day, I was always enough. Anybody would be lucky to have me, right? And so it's like, oh, you know, can you do this? Can you do that? And everybody said yes. People I had never even met, like, oh, we can hand it over there. We can think, like, wait a minute. All I had to do was open my mouth, right? And so then you start to not be afraid. And then, like, the rejection or no, it doesn't even matter anymore. It's literally a part of the process, right? So from there, I was thinking, hold on a minute. I can start, I'm enough. As I show up, and doors that close or doors that just need to be closed. So from that concept, I started kind of clawing away, and I wound up getting like a really great job that I'm at right now. And of course, me being the ambitious me that I am, I'm always got my eyes open for other things. But, I love it here. There's actually joy here, joy in work, married. Who knew?
Let's go.
Okay. Who knew?
I'm so happy you did that.
That's why it's always good to like have friends from all kinds of, different, backgrounds or different experiences, right? Because, like they're gonna they're bringing all of these thoughts that you've never even thought about. You're thinking, wait, people do this, people do that. So you kind of have to, see it. So, yeah.
It's so true, right? It's like when you go to a new country or a different state or a new city, and the cultural context is different, and people act different, and people think different, and people do different. And then you're like, oh, like the way I've always done things isn't necessarily the only way. That's how I felt when I moved from France to the US, because I was in Paris growing up. Like, it sounds so romantic, but people were so negative. You know what I mean? It's so critical and just always complaining. And I was like, gosh, I guess life is just really hard and dark, and that's what you think. I mean, and I'm not the only one. I have other friends who grew up in Paris, and we're all like, we're out, And then I come here and I'm like, oh my gosh, people have no time for complaints here. It's like, there's more of a focus on the positive, which I really, really embrace. I was like, I'm not going back, but then you see other things in the US, for example. It's like, I am what I do is what people think. And there's suffering that comes with that, with this feeling like I am only worthy of what I do. For example, that's one of the things that people work way too hard here, in a sense, because they feel like they have to. But the point being, like you said, whenever you see a new way of thinking, or you can question, wait, what's keeping me boxed into?
It's like it's a light. It's small, but even a small light, and we know this. I mean, it's science, right? Even a small light, you're thinking, wait, I can follow the light, right?
Starr, you are the light.
You're a star.
Like, I can get out of here.
It's basically her name. Starr is a star.
Yeah. It's a good example, though, as well.
Really good. Yeah. What about you, Bryant? Do you have any thoughts on this? Or other sort of examples of
Yeah.
where have you seen sovereignty play out, either in your life or other people's lives, or in this people you teach, you know?
Yeah, I think maybe I have a question for the group as
Yeah,
well.
please.
So I've given away my belongings 3 times, 3 to 4 times, where I've given away everything. And with that came a transition in the career. Okay, so I've been many different hats in this lifetime and many different people. Always the same essence, but a lot of different textures of what I did in the world, whether it's business, acting, charity, treading a lot of hats. And I think when a lot of people, especially when the concept of joy comes up for work, which I would think the world would be such a beautiful place if everybody was joyful at work. I mean, can you imagine that? When they're looking to make the transition into a more joyful state of being within the circumstances of their life, how do they have the courage to make that change? How do they find the clarity from your experience? I think that would be interesting to hear from both of your perspectives, because Emma's a career woman, right?
Starr, do you want to share?
It was just being fed up. That's
You're
when you
just
get the
like-
courage. I'm just like, you know what? There's gotta be something. Oh my! And there was another thing that happened in that class. Emma, trying to figure out. You can edit this thing if need be, right? If I speak out of turn, perfect.
You're
Okay. So there was this. There was something going on where, every time Emma spoke, someone would kind of raise their hand and kind of shoot down everything. Basically saying Emma was like this, hippie sunflower, that's not gonna work, that's not gonna work, that's not gonna work. And mind you, we're sitting in Emma's class, right? We obviously come here to learn, right? And so at this point, I'm thinking, what the freaking hell? I was like, listen, I know you're saying it's not gonna work, but aren't you tired of the way things are? It's because I'm tired, and I'd like to hear anything she has to say, no matter how, optimistic it sounds. I want to hear it. I want to try it, because I have tried pessimism. I have tried where we are, and I'm tired. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of concepts that, should not be foreign, feeling like a splash of cold water, joy and work. Wait a minute. Things that, literally. And then when I thought about it, I thought, wait, why is that not something I understand, And so I think I just got tired. And I think when you get tired and fed up, and there's always, even when you're tired and fed up, and even when you've kind of been in the darkness for so long, there's still something deep down inside of you, if you're part of the light that knows this isn't right. You know what I mean? And even if it gets quiet for a long period of time, it's just waiting for an excuse to bloom. It's waiting to come out. It's there. All this shit gets thrown on top of it. But I promise you, it's still there. And so it happens in a way that you think it wouldn't happen. You get tired. You get fed up.
I'm going to go back to your beautiful question, Bryant.
Yes, sure.
I've always noticed that. So I've always noticed that my workplaces have been a reflection of my relationship with myself. Just like any other relationship, actually. I can think of at least 3 or 4 workplaces I was in where I was being squeezed or, full on mistreated or squeezed, taken advantage of, credit taken, especially in science, authorship and stuff like that. It's just complete credit taken for my work. And this happened a bunch of times until one day I took on a position, and the person, the scientist in charge, he was like, "Oh, you could be a faculty if you come into the office, and work such and such many hours, or you could just be a contractor, and you can work from home or whatever." And I was like, "Thank you, I'll be a contractor." And I ended up getting a faculty position anyway. But, later I had people in that lab tell me, how did you have such good boundaries with them? And I was like, well, I've been burnt enough that, but it also was starting to reflect that I was shifting towards a more sovereign way of being, rather than being in a place where I was constantly running myself ragged, trying to please everyone, trying to do good, and not standing up for myself or asking straight up front, am I going to get authorship on this paper that I'm going to do this much work on. Can I get it in writing? And I didn't have all that. So then when, 3 years later, the publication comes out, it's like, oh, no, you're not an author. So, but I learned. So I guess you learn from experience. And like you said, you start to claw your way out and you're just like, I'm done. Like, no more. Right.
Mhm.
And that reflected also actually in my personal relationship. So
Yeah.
in a sense, I was realizing, wow, I'm letting the world treat me the way I treat myself. And
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
moment that shifts, then I also interact with the world in a different way. And I ask for what I deserve and I say no when I need to say no. But it was like you said, an awakening from being fed up,
Yeah.
and also, yeah, no longer willing to take abuse,
Yeah.
Yeah. What about
And it's like that truth too, because it's like, hold on a second. I don't believe that this is the only way for me to get faculty. You don't hold all the faculty ships in your hand. Fuck you. You know what I mean? Like enough is enough. So no to this, and I'm gonna get something else, and something else
Yeah.
came. You know what I mean? Like at some point, it's like, hold on a second. My belief, it's not after. Like, how did you get the courage? Because you realize the truth, and the truth is that that person or thing doesn't hold every. This world is beautiful and vast, and I'm not willing to do what you want me to do to get what you're holding. Somebody else is holding what I need because I'm not going to do it, right? And so it's that fed upness, it's the recognizing of the truth. And the truth is if you kind of operate that this is all that scarcity, this is my only chance to get
That's right.
this. If I don't do this right now, I'll never get this. That's a lie. That's not true, right? And so once you see that that's not true, you be like, hold on a second. Well, I can go this way. I can go that way. I can go this way. And it's scary sometimes, but you're like, listen, I don't care how scary it is. I'm not doing that.
I love what you
Yeah.
said about scarcity, because it's scarcity that makes us frantic, because we're trying to survive.
Mhm.
But it doesn't have to be scarce. It doesn't have to be scarce. Like you said, there's another, like water finds its way around rocks. Like and
Does.
we have that ability. But when we're in fear, like fear is one of the main things that stands in the way of sovereignty. Because when you're in
Yes.
fear, then
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
can't see, can't think, and you just trying to grasp at straws.
I think you said in your class, you're literally not in your prefrontal cortex.
right.
You're not in the thinking part of your brain when you're
Yeah.
afraid, which means you can't see another way, right?
And you're also not creative. So you can't have insight.
Yes,
You can't have innovative insight.
right. It's
Yeah.
it's
Paralyzing. And so if you want to control people, put them in fear. And I
yes,
think that's been
yeah,
the models in schoolings and so forth. It's been a natural
yeah,
thing, okay, let's get kids to behave by creating fear. Well, that's changing
yeah,
now. But it's really
yeah,
important to realize when fear is running us as a program, that's when we need to remember, okay, I'm bound in this moment. I'm not sovereign. Let me,
uh-huh,
go take some breathing lessons with Bryant. And
yeah,
let me go meditate. Let me go walk outside. Let me just take loving care of myself so I'm not in fear. Then I can come back to my sovereign space.
uh-huh,
I think it's so beautiful because effort and sovereignty almost go hand in hand, where I don't know a lot of circumstances unless you go from like a really strict yogic perspective where you release attachment to like everything, right? A desire for everything, like to do anything. It really, you have to wake up, take care of yourself, right? Speak up for yourself if you want something different for yourself, right? There's effort involved, which is actually interesting. Instead of like really trusting, oh, everything's working out for my favor, that could absolutely be true as a mantra where everything's working out better than I could ever imagine. And I'm giving the knowledge of how to request and create choices that supports the process of that. And I have to interact with life to co-create that.
So true. And that awareness piece. And it takes courage. I think you were saying courage also earlier. It's like that awareness, the effort, and the courage. It's not for the faint of heart, but what's the alternative?
mhm,
A life that you
right.
don't,
Exactly.
right?
Mhm.
It's a,
Very true.
yeah, so true. Any final thoughts about sovereignty or other sort of stories or thoughts that you have?
I think a really cool part of my journey was early 20s existential crisis, like so severe. And then simple truths started coming into play that allowed, pretty much pretty free life now. And I think the desire to find those simple truths on an individual basis is such a moral and worthy goal for sovereignty.
Yeah.
And that comes with the breath, mastering the mind, the body, and emotions, these kind of all these basic things, and then getting to that essence. So then when you go and you have to make that choice or understand that choice, you're doing it from that free perspective, not from a fear perspective.
Yes.
We're like, oh, why is this all happening to me? And you're like, nope, let me reorganize my mind, get into my breath, get back into that creativity, and then make a grounded, clear decision from there instead of reacting to all the things that feel like they're out of alignment. And this is a skill set everybody can learn. Yes. I really believe that.
What are some of the truths that you're talking about that helped you?
Trust comes from the breath. So when I'm in an environment and I'm shallow breathing, or if I feel anxiety and I feel like I need to make a decision, XYZ, the breath, when you drop into that breath in that one moment, you tap into a deeper part of your intuition and knowing, and that can be your North Star. And there's natural clarity that comes with it. So every time when I have any sort of emotional reaction to thing, I'm pre-programmed for the first thing that I do to come back into the heart, to ground myself, go back into a deep breath, and then make a decision from that place. And this could be as simple as someone sends you a text message you don't like. A lot of the times we project onto that text message that it's saying something completely different than what it is. Like you're reading a whole different text message, and then you're like, oh, and then you're like, all right, hold on. And you might read it again and see something completely different. Or you might see the same thing, but instead of wanting to react in regards to that, you might just lead the conversation to more grace. And that's freedom to me, like showing a different path. So that's a simple truth, I think, that is very easily to discover.
So true. Because when you are in that reactive space, you're in the fight or flight. And then you're not, like we said, are not seeing right. And that's it, just coming back into the body, into the breath, into groundedness, shifts your whole mindset. I love that.
Yeah. Two rights make a right. Two wrongs don't make a wrong. And that's the thing, is like there's a freedom to not indulge yourself into more pain too, where we're all like so chemically conditioned to feel like shit sometimes. And we haven't really gone into that consistent state of joy or peace.
That's right.
And I think there's a lot of,
I think for a lot of people, they've never really experienced that. And what I was noticing just recently, I've been noticing that caffeine is contagious. Like if I'm with someone who is highly caffeinated, it's like,
interesting.
I just like, I feel it in my own system, and I'm thinking, gosh, there's so many people who are so wired. They don't even know how wired they are. And they are restricting themselves from feeling the groundedness because it puts them, I don't think caffeine puts everyone into that space, but it puts some people, or they caffeinate to that extent. But being in a wired place is, creates an inability to feel what you're talking about, But I also think our lifestyle and our life is wiring. Like things are stressful and crazy out there, but like you said, every choice you make to come back to breathing, every choice you make to come back to honoring yourself, like Starr, just like, you honor yourself and you question, like, wait a second, what am I buying into right now, which is keeping me bound? Every time we do that, we reclaim that sovereignty, that like you said, that bit of light inside of us that reminds us, no, you're right here, right now, and everything is okay, and you are okay.
And I think that's what the journey is. I think a big part of why we're here on earth is that school of life that teaches us how to do that. And it's really a reclaiming. And I love that you use that word. It really feels like a reclaiming. Reclaiming.
Yeah, that word came really strong when I was writing the book. It was like, it's about reclaiming our birthright that we already have. That's not something foreign. That's actually very simple. And finding journeying our way back there.
Yeah.
Starr, do you have any final thoughts?
Thank you so much for having me today, guys.
Oh my gosh, you're so awesome.
You know, it's just great spending some time with you guys. Um, every day, clawing myself.
You're honest.
And also, like, it's so fun to notice how much energy you have, Star, because it really feels like you're someone that questions reality, comes up with an answer for it, and then you're like, wait a minute, you know, and you like gain energy from it. You're like, no, fuck that, you know what I mean? And then like you make the shift,
You
and
cannot trick me.
there's like it's magnetic, you know. I'm going in when I leave this conversation, I'm gonna be like, you know.
And I love what you said, Brian.
Not today.
Right? Not today.
Yeah,
Maybe tomorrow, not today.
yeah, not today.
It's energizing. Like Starr, that's what you're saying. It's energizing. And
It's energizing.
bondage is depleting.
Yes. Just a little. Yeah. And it's so, and you know, and it's, you said what truths do we always have? And one of the things that I always have to come back to, because, you know, you're always questioning just the state of the world. You're questioning, hey, am I good enough? Did I work hard enough? Am I worthy? Am I this? And just one truth that I always say to myself, like, you're enough. And nothing, whether you just woke up today and took a breath, you're enough. You did enough.
Beautiful.
You don't have to gain worthiness. You're inherently worthy,
That's right.
right? And so, like, you know, and those, and oh my goodness, and that, some lies are more detrimental than others, but that's a lie that a lot of people believe that makes the world really, really ugly, right? People don't know their worth, right? And so I'm constantly like reaffirming, like, oh, to my kids, like, oh no, you're fine, you're this. You're constantly, you know, anything that comes against that, I know is a lie. So there's certain things you can't trick me with anymore, right? That's one of them. Anything that says, oh no, you're not enough, you're not smart enough, you're not this, you're not. Please, okay? Oh, like you're gonna fail. Okay, well, so what if I failed? It doesn't mean I'm a failure, right? You know what I mean? Like I'm questioning that, right? Like, oh, I failed on a test, so that means that I'm not. That's stupid.
Right?
Like you can't trick me. Okay, so you know, like an action, or something I did, something I thought, a mistake that I made, that's outside of me. Me, I'm inherently worthy. I'm inherently enough. I inherently deserve to be free. You cannot control how I think. You can control yourself. I'm sovereign over this body, period. And anything that infringes on that, I'm blocking.
You're so inspiring, Starr.
That's how it is.
Yeah.
You can't trick me today.
Yeah, not today. Not today, devil. You know.
Not today. And you know, and I might be tricked tomorrow, but guess what? The day after that, I assure you, at some point, I'm going to wake up, and I might be mad when I wake up. Yeah, you're right. How long have I been in this town? And if I'm there, we might have a problem, right? Because now I got to get free quicker, and I'm like, and she got to get free too. Because are you crazy? Like you know, like it's no, I got a problem with that.
I love this. I love this whole conversation. And I think one thing to take away is this breathing in, I, breathing out, am enough. The combination of what Bryant you're sharing and Starr what you're sharing. And breathing that. If we can breathe that several times a day.
Yep.
Agreed.
Yep.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you. So nice to meet you.
Anytime, always.
Wonderful to meet you. Thank you for sharing your story. My kids want a pet now, Emma, and I'm just like,
Well, my kids have a pet and they want another pet. It's not going to end with one.
but then they take it so hard because, like, when our freaking hamster died, man, we had a whole funeral and everything. I mean, like a funeral. Okay, we were outside.
Yeah, of
People,
course.
like, they said words, like they were so devastated, like they couldn't go to school, and they weren't just putting on, they were devastated. Like the next day they couldn't go to school. Like I was like, oh my God, we had to order pizza. It was so bad. And so now I'm thinking, you guys want to, like, they took it so
No, I know
hard.
it's devastating, but it's very funny at the same time.
It truly is. I mean, it was, and I'm gonna, because I know we need to get back on topic, but the hamster was dead, right? And so, but he was still kind of, you know, they have this reflex where they still kind of hiccup.
Oh no.
Oh yes. And so the kids thought it was still alive, right? And so my husband calls me and goes, "Hey, Starr," he goes, "Babe, like I'm taking the hamster to the vet, you know." And now, mind you, my husband knows this, and this he's gone, okay. And so I was like, okay, oh my God, let me help him rush back. He goes, "Baby, don't rush." He goes, and I said, "Why did you tell me not to rush? Like, what's going on?" So they give him to the hospital, and the vet, it was such a great vet. They did CPR on the dead hamster.
Oh, mouth to mouth?
Kids.
Or the little thing?
No, no, no.
The kids did. Oh.
This is
Oh, it's so
And then my husband's like, "Oh, shit, this animal is dead." Like, but we couldn't. But he's like, if these kids don't think I did everything to save this
Yeah.
hamster's life, they will never forget. Like, they'll be in therapy, right? So he's like, "It's in there."
oh my God.
He's like, "Babe, like he goes, I knew I could not tell, like that like small bit of life." He goes, "I knew I could not tell them that was just a reflex." It was horrible. And so I'm thinking, do we have to go through this again? And then, like, you know, like John, like, carried him out in his little coffin, and like they said words, and like, you know, like I live in a row house, so like everybody knows our business, and so our neighbors come by, and then like everybody puts their heads down because they know that we're having a funeral. And I'm like, "My condolences."
Sorry.
And the next thing my neighbor sees me, he goes, "Hey, was that a funeral?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "I thought so. You know, I wanted to be respectful."
Oh.
This is the funniest thing I've ever heard. This story at the funeral.
Yeah, and it cost us. So the vet, I had took a dead hamster to the vet.
$500 later.
CPR, yes.
DC vets, right? I'm like,
Come on.
I know. Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
So I'm dreading another death of a pet. I'm just like, you know, like that on top of like, you know, my house is already like tiny. It's like maybe 1,500 square feet in here. I'm thinking on top, I've already got 3 kids. You bring a pet in this place. I don't know. Anyway, there we go.
I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. As a psychologist and someone who has studied the science of happiness for 20 years, I have finally boiled down everything that I learned, that I've written about, that I have researched, that I've conducted clinical trials on into my first online public course. It starts January 25th, 2025. I hope to see you there. For all the details, see the information below this video.